Good morning, students. Today we will learn about the Govt of India Act 1935. Earlier we learned about the Indian National Congress, which was formed by A.O. Hume. It was formed with an intention of telling the Indians to pressurize the British government their ideas and ideals. And this was done by the Indian National Congress. But the British government tried to do certain reforms because of their demands, because of the demand by the Indians. And they did it in the form of different acts. And these reforms, like the 1909 Act, which was passed, again it was a failure. But next, the 1919 Act came into practice. And in this act, the government, that is the British government, promised the Indians a responsible government. And they also said, we shall introduce diarchy, that is dual government, in the British India as well as for the provinces. But this also failed after some time. And Gandhiji, from the Congress party, took up the leadership and he started the policy called Swaraj. Swaraj meaning independence, self-rule. We rule our own India so that the Britishers go away. But he stressed on a policy, he said, it has to be on the policy of non-cooperation. So this was to be implemented. As per the 1919 Act, the Statutory Commission was to visit India and it had to see after 10 years what changes have been happening. So the Indians wanted this committee to come in and they requested for it to come much before 10 years. Hence, in the year 1927 itself, they visited India. But what was this for? Why was it for? The main idea was to inquire into the passing of the Act, the working system, to check the development of the representative institutions with a view to modify, to restrict the degree of responsible government in India. Now this committee which visited India was called as the Simon Commission. This Simon Commission came in as a concession, as an early revision which was a demand by the Indians. Sir John Simon and 7 other members of the British Parliament came as a team of the Simon Commission. When they came here, they had no member, single member from the Indian. Hence, this was taken as an insult by the Congress members. And they said that we do not want any commission here, and they shouted slogans saying, "Go back, Simon." And though this was being said, this Simon Commission continued with their visit and they completed their visit and went back. In 1929, they announced the dominion status for India. And this suggested that there will be semi-independence. That is, they will get partial independence in their nation. Now, after that, in 1930, they held a roundtable conference which was led by Mahatma Gandhi. Again, in 1931, there was another roundtable conference where they discussed different issues which was headed by Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. And the next or the last roundtable conference, the third roundtable conference, which was led by Mahatma Gandhi, was finalized and they submitted a report. And this report, which was submitted in the form of a white paper. This white paper specified certain policies which was the result of these 3 conferences held. The first one stated educational facilities and reservation policy in politics for the depressed classes. They wanted to have reservations for the depressed classes in the political arena. Second was universal adult franchise. They've implemented right to vote for all men and women, all those who are above 18 years of age. Third one is prohibition of social boycott. Prohibition of social boycott meaning boycott is if a person or a group of persons have been kept aside from a particular group, all the others refuse to meet them, keep them outside, boycott them from their social activities. That had to be stopped. Next was communal representation. The white paper after the round table conference suggested there should be communal representation. That communal representation was for different communities. Then fifth one was separate electorate for the untouchables. They wanted a separate electorate for the untouchables or the depressed classes. This Simon Commission brought out this report and it was put forward. But Gandhiji was opposing this. Gandhiji was in Yerwada jail at that time, during that period, and he opposed a separate electorate for the untouchables. He saw to it as the British Parliament's game as to divide the Hindus in India. As it is, when they were having plans of divide and rule policy, hence they wanted to divide the Indian Hindus also. With this in mind, they have suggested a separate electorate for untouchables, said Gandhiji. Now for this, he said they allotted 71 seats or 71 representatives. In this they said it shall go to a few of the Europeans, few Indian Christians, few Muslims, as well as Sikhs. So like this they wanted to divide this, but Gandhiji opposed this, whereas Ambedkar supported this. Ambedkar wanted this. But since Gandhiji was in the Yerwada jail during that period, he stood by it and he said, we do not want a separate electorate, and he straight away started a fast unto death. He stopped eating food. During this period, everybody went to Ambedkar and requested him to support Gandhiji. But Ambedkar was very adamant and he did not want to support this. In fact, he wanted a separate electorate. Whereas after a lot of pacifying, Ambedkar finally, only with a condition, because it is the life of Gandhiji, he agreed, and Gandhiji and Ambedkar agreed together, and Gandhiji at that time suggested, let there be representation for the depressed classes in the parliament, but not a separate electorate. So on that condition, they signed an agreement. That is, B.R. Ambedkar and Gandhiji agreed for it. But since Gandhiji was in jail, Madan Mohan and Ambedkar signed the pact in 1932, 24th September, which was called as the Pune Pact. This Pune Pact was signed and Gandhiji was happy about it, and he was improving in his health conditions. After this, another white paper was made, and in this white paper, the recommendations were given, and these recommendations were sent to the Joint Select Committee. In the Joint Select Committee had to examine it, and the Joint Select Committee had members of the British Parliament. Immediately, they recommended the Govt of India Act 1935. Consisting of 321 articles and 10 schedules. Now we'll see what are the exact recommendations of the Govt of India Act 1935. First one is the federation. The policy of federation is two governments. One is the government for the British India and another with the princely states. Next is distribution of power. Distribution of power to both the governments, that is British India as well as the princely states, had to be done with two legislatures, one is central legislature and provincial legislatures. Now when they divide it, it has to be in the form of writing or in black and white. That will avoid a lot of conflicts. Hence, three lists were made. One is federal list, provincial list, as well as the concurrent list. The federal list consists of 59 subjects. In these 59 subjects, a few of them are external affairs, currency, defense, shipping, etc. Provincial list consists of 54 items that may be police, education, transportation, state transportation, etc. Concurrent list. This has 36 subjects: criminal law, marriage, divorce, etc. Now coming to federal list. Only the federation or the federal government has jurisdiction on these 59 subjects. Here it is only the provincial government which will have jurisdiction on the 54 subjects, and the concurrent list will have jurisdiction from both, that is from the British India as well as the princely states. The next one, there were residuary powers which was given completely to the Governor General. So he was the person who used to manage it, and he was also given discretionary powers also. Coming to the third one, diarchy. This was in fact under the 1919 Act itself, it was specified that we will give India diarchy status, but it was not conferred, whereas in the 1935 Act it has been implemented. Diarchy meaning executive authority will be with the Governor General, and here what happens is there will be two types of subjects. One is reserved, one is transferred. Whatever reserved subjects, the Governor General will deal with them with the help of the councillors, and these councillors are not answerable to the central legislature. I repeat, the reserved subjects will be handled by the Governor General with the help of the councillors, but these councillors are not answerable to the legislature. Next is transferred subjects. Here again we have activities like criminal, etc. Here the Governor General handles it with the help of the Council of Ministers, and these Council of Ministers are responsible to the legislature. Coming to the fourth point, it is federal legislature. We have two types of legislators. One is bicameral legislature and the next is unicameral legislature. Unicameral, one house, meaning single house. Bicameral legislature having two houses, bi meaning two, cameral, two houses. So when the legislature has a single house, we call it as unicameral, and when it has two houses, that is the lower house and the upper house, we call it as bicameral legislature. Under this act, when it was specified, Bengal, Bombay, Bihar and Madras decided to continue with bicameral legislature, whereas the other parts of India followed unicameral system. In this bicameral system, we have the lower house as well as the upper house. Lower house is called as Federal Assembly, upper house is called as Council of States, because this represents the states, this represents the people. So Federal Assembly is the lower house. Now in this Federal Assembly, we have 375 members. Out of these 375 members, 250, that is 65%, will be elected from the Legislative Assembly. Then 125 members, that is 33% of this, will be nominated rulers of the princely states. Now this term of this lower house will be 5 years, and they will be there as members for a period of 5 years. Council of States, 260 members, 156, that is 60%, are elected British India. 104 members or 40%, they are nominated from the princely states. This will be a permanent house, and all these members will retire every 3 years. That is, 1/3 of them will retire every 3 years, and the next new members will be nominated or elected as the need be. Coming to the next fifth point, that is federal government. Federal court. Federal court was started in Delhi for the first time in the year 1937. When the federal court for the first time was started, they started with 1 Chief Justice and 6 additional judges. All of them were appointed by His Majesty, and they had 3 types of jurisdiction. One was original jurisdiction, appellate jurisdiction, and advisory jurisdiction. Original jurisdiction was they used to clear cases which was between the center as well as the state, that is provinces. Appellate jurisdiction is all those, whatever has been appealed to the high courts. Next one, advisory jurisdiction is they can advise the Governor General. This court was actually set up by Sir Maurice Goyer. He was the first Chief Justice of the Federal Court, and he was the person who brought in a major change in the Indian courts. And this Federal Court existed till 1950 when the Constitution transformed this Federal Court into a Supreme Court, what we have till today. So as of now, what the Federal Court was earlier has been transformed into a Supreme Court now. The next provision of the Govt of India Act 1935 suggests provincial autonomy. That means all the provinces will be autonomous. Autonomous meaning giving them complete freedom or complete autonomous to decide, to take up decisions with regard to their provinces. This was suggested, and the 11 states which were introduced with provincial autonomy was Madras, Bombay, Bengal, Sindh, United Provinces, Punjab, Bihar, Central Provinces, Assam, Orissa, Northwestern Frontier Province. Now, here they decided that there will be no more differences between the transferred subjects and the reserved subjects. All the ministers were given complete charge. They used to take care of all these subjects put together, and they were also responsible, made responsible for the activities with regard to these subjects. Here, the ministers were given the responsibility, and they were responsible to the Legislative Assembly. At the same time, the Legislative Assembly was also given power to remove them. Thus, the executive also was responsible to the legislature. But what sort of relations did the central government and the province maintain? There was a few of the provisions were followed, but a few others were not, especially whatever was mentioned in the 3 lists. All these provisions were implemented correctly, but a few others was not. Like the dominion status was provided under the Simon Commission's order, but this was not conferred. Princely states refused to join or to merge with the other states so that they could form a Federation of India. Hence, the dream of Federation of India did not materialize. Again, the degree of provincial authority at the provinces was limited to the central government. Only the central government had all the powers. They restrained, or they kept to themselves all the important powers. The Governor General was the head. The Governor General was in a pivotal position. He was the one person who had all discretionary powers also. Hence, provincial autonomy was very, very limited. Hence, we cannot call this as complete autonomy, or complete autonomous was not given to the provinces because more of the power was retained by the central government itself. Now, I shall give you a few questions where you will write down the question and the answers in your notebook. Why was the Statutory Commission formed? Why was the Statutory Commission formed? What did the Simon Commission recommend? What did the Simon Commission recommend? When were the 3 round table conferences held? When were the 3 round table conferences held? Next, mention any one important provision of the Govt of India Act 1935. Mention any one important provision of the Govt of India Act 1935. When was the federal court established and where? This is for 2 marks. When was the federal court established and where? Explain in detail the Govt of India Act 1935. This is for 10 marks. Explain in detail the Govt of India Act 1935. This is for 10 marks. I expect you all to write down all this 10 marks answer in 30 to 40 sentences, one answer. Thank you. Have a nice day, students.